I thought the hardest part of my life was over. I just sold my company for $60 million. That night was supposed to be a celebration, a victory lap. Then a waiter leaned in and whispered something that made my stomach drop. "Sir, don't drink that." I smiled, thinking it was a mistake. Then he said, "Your daughter put something in it." In the next few minutes, I realized success doesn't protect you from betrayal, and the most dangerous people are the ones you trust the most. The night I sold my company for $60 million was supposed to be the happiest night of my life. For 22 years, I had built that business from nothing. No investors at the beginning, no safety net. Just late nights, cheap coffee, and the kind of pressure that never really lets you sleep. There were years I missed birthdays, years I worked through vacations, years I wondered if I was gambling my family's future on an idea that would never pay off. And then it did. That morning, the deal closed. $60 million. Clean, final. The kind of number that changes everything. When I signed the last document, the lawyer shook my hand and said, "Congratulations, you're free." Free. That word followed me all day. So that evening, I decided to celebrate properly. Not loud, not flashy, just meaningful. I made a reservation at one of the most expensive restaurants in the city. The kind with low lighting, white tablecloths, and waiters who don't write anything down because they don't have to. I didn't invite business partners. I didn't invite friends. I invited my daughter. She was 24, smart, beautiful, raised around sacrifice and discipline. I had always believed she understood what this moment meant. All those years I wasn't home early, all those maybe next weekend promises. This was proof it hadn't been for nothing. When she walked into the restaurant, she smiled in that familiar way that still made her look like the little girl who used to wait up for me when I worked late. She hugged me tightly. "You did it, Dad," she said. "I'm so proud of you." That sentence alone made the entire journey feel worth it. We were seated near the window, city lights glowing behind her like a movie scene. She kept looking around, taking it all in, laughing softly. "So," she said, lifting her glass, "to you, to finally winning." I felt something loosen in my chest. Winning. For the first time in decades, I didn't feel like I was chasing anything anymore. I ordered without looking at prices. Old habit, broken in one night. Steak, wine. Dessert before the main course even arrived. The waiter nodded respectfully, as if this kind of confidence was expected from someone like me. I noticed how relaxed I felt. No phone buzzing, no emails, no emergencies. Just a father and his daughter at a table that represented everything I'd worked for. She asked questions about the deal, who bought it, what I planned to do next. Travel, maybe. Sleep, definitely. I laughed more that night than I had in years. She kept refilling my glass before it was empty. At the time, it felt thoughtful. She raised her own glass again. "One more toast," she said. "To new beginnings." I lifted mine. That was the moment I remember most clearly. The calm, the certainty, the absolute belief that I was safe. The restaurant hummed around us. Soft music, low conversation. A pianist in the corner playing something slow and elegant. Everything about the night felt deliberate. Earned. If someone had told me then that I was in danger, I would have laughed. Danger didn't exist in rooms like this. Not for men who had just closed a $60 million deal. Not with your own child sitting across from you, smiling. The waiter returned with our food. He placed the plates carefully, adjusted the cutlery, and then paused. He didn't leave right away. Instead, he leaned slightly closer to me, just enough that my daughter couldn't hear. His voice dropped. Not professional, not rehearsed, urgent. "Sir," he said quietly. I looked up, annoyed at first. I thought maybe there was an issue with the order. Then I saw his face. He wasn't smiling. His eyes were fixed on mine, wide and serious in a way that didn't belong in a place like this. "Sir," he whispered, "I need you to not drink that." I frowned. "What?" He leaned in closer, his hand resting on the table as if to steady himself. "Your daughter." He swallowed hard. "Your daughter put something in your drink." The sounds of the restaurant faded. The music blurred. The glass in my hand suddenly felt heavier than it should have. And in that single moment, everything I thought I knew about that perfect night shattered. Because nothing prepares you for the instant when success turns into survival. And that's when the waiter leaned in and said something that froze my blood. For a split second, I thought I'd misheard him. The waiter stood there, frozen, his body angled toward me like he was blocking the glass without touching it. Around us, nothing had changed. Cutlery clinked. Someone laughed 2 tables over. The pianist kept playing. Normal life continued. Inside my head, everything stopped. "Sir, don't drink that," he whispered again, barely moving his lips. "Your daughter put something in it." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my brain rejected it on instinct. The sentence didn't fit reality. It didn't belong in the story of my life. My daughter? The same child who used to fall asleep on my chest during late-night movies? The one who cried when I left for work trips? I shook my head slightly. "That's not possible," I said quietly. "You're mistaken." He didn't back away. Instead, his eyes flicked toward my glass, then back to me. There was fear there, real fear, the kind you can't fake. His voice trembled when he spoke again. "I saw her," he said. "I was refilling the water station. She leaned over when you weren't looking. She poured it in, clear liquid, small vial." My mouth went dry. This wasn't gossip. This wasn't confusion. This was a man risking his job to warn a stranger. Still, my instincts screamed denial. I wanted to stand up, call a manager, demand an explanation. I wanted to tell him he was wrong, that he'd misread something innocent. A vitamin, a joke, anything but what he was implying. Instead, I forced a smile. I glanced at my daughter. She was looking at her phone, thumbs moving quickly, then looked up and smiled when she noticed me watching. Everything about her looked normal, relaxed, happy. I turned back to the waiter. "If this is some kind of misunderstanding—" "Sir," he interrupted softly. "Please. I wouldn't say this if I wasn't sure." The way he said "please" unsettled me more than the accusation. My hand hovered near the glass. The wine inside shimmered under the dim light. I'd already taken 1 small sip earlier. Or had I? A sudden wave of nausea rolled through me. Light, faint, easy to dismiss. Adrenaline kicked in. I did the only thing my instincts allowed. I nodded. "Okay," I said quietly. "Thank you." He stepped back, but he didn't leave. He lingered nearby, pretending to adjust another table, his eyes never leaving me. I lifted the glass. I brought it to my lips, and I pretended to drink. The rim touched my mouth, but I tilted it just enough that nothing poured in. I swallowed anyway, acting casual, acting normal. My daughter watched me closely, too closely. Her eyes tracked the glass, not my face. "Everything okay?" she asked, smiling. "Perfect," I said, "just enjoying the moment." She relaxed, just slightly, barely noticeable, but once you're looking for it, you see everything. She lifted her own glass and drank. I set mine down untouched. My heart pounded, but my face stayed calm. decades of negotiation, of hiding doubt in boardrooms, suddenly mattered more than ever. I didn't accuse her. I didn't ask questions. I watched. She leaned back in her chair, glanced at her phone again, then at me. A flicker of something crossed her face. Impatience? Expectation? Seconds stretched, minutes. I felt another wave of dizziness, stronger this time. My vision narrowed just a bit. Had I actually swallowed something earlier? The waiter returned, placing bread on the table, his movements deliberate. He met my eyes for a fraction of a second and gave the smallest shake of his head. Don't. I pushed the glass away slightly. My daughter noticed. You okay, Dad? She asked. You haven't finished your drink. Saving it, I said. No rush. Her smile didn't reach her eyes this time. She leaned forward. You should drink it while it's still cold. There it was. Pressure, subtle, casual, controlled. I nodded. In a minute. My pulse thundered in my ears. This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. This was a test, and whatever was in that glass was meant to work fast. I realized something chilling in that moment. If the waiter hadn't spoken up, I would have finished it without a second thought. I would have trusted the person across from me completely. That realization hurt more than the fear. I sat there, pretending everything was normal, while my mind raced. What did she expect to happen? Why tonight? Why now? Across the table, my daughter smiled again, lifting her glass in another small toast. To you, she said softly. I lifted mine, never breaking eye contact. I didn't confront her. I decided to watch. Sitting there, pretending to smile while my glass stayed untouched, my mind started doing something I hadn't allowed it to do before. It went backward, not years, not decades, just days. Little moments I'd brushed off without a second thought. The celebration itself hadn't been my idea. That realization hit me first. I had planned to keep the night simple. Maybe takeout. Maybe a quiet drive home. I was exhausted after closing the deal, emotionally wrung out. But she had insisted. Dad, this is huge, she'd said earlier that week. You don't sell a company for $60 million and eat noodles on the couch. She had already picked the restaurant before I could suggest anything else. This one, she said, sending me the link. Trust me, it's perfect. At the time, I thought it was sweet. Thought she wanted to make the night special. Now, sitting across from her, watching her fingers tap lightly against her phone, it felt rehearsed. I glanced at the table. She had ordered the wine before I even finished reading the menu. I know what you like, she'd said, waving off the waiter's questions. He'll have the Cabernet. She didn't ask. She decided. That detail suddenly felt heavy. I remembered how she'd insisted on pouring the first glass herself, laughing when I teased her about playing sommelier. Let me, she'd said. Tonight's about you. My stomach tightened. I hadn't seen her leave the table, hadn't noticed when she leaned over the glass. Because why would I watch my own daughter that closely? That was the most painful realization of all. I had trusted her so completely that I had stopped observing. Across from me now, she smiled again, but it didn't linger. Her eyes kept flicking to the glass. Then to her phone, then back to me. She checked the screen, locked it, unlocked it again. Waiting. For what? I replayed the last few weeks. How she'd been unusually attentive after the deal closed. More calls, more texts. Always asking where I was, what time I'd be home. At the time, I thought it was pride. Now, it felt like monitoring. I remembered her asking questions that had seemed harmless then. Have you finalized the beneficiaries yet? Does everything transfer immediately? Do you feel relieved or just tired? I'd answered honestly. even laughed. "Why all the questions?" I joked. She'd smiled. "Just curious. Curious." The word echoed in my head. The waiter passed by again, slower this time, eyes scanning the table as if checking for movement. He paused just long enough to refill her water, then glanced at my untouched glass. Good. I pushed my chair back slightly, testing my balance. The room tilted, just a fraction. I froze. The dizziness came in a soft wave, not violent, not sudden. The kind you could mistake for fatigue, or champagne bubbles on an empty stomach. Except I hadn't drunk anything. My heart rate spiked. I sat back down, forcing my breathing to stay even. My palms were damp. My mouth felt dry, cottony. She noticed. "You're really pale," she said, her voice gentle. Too gentle. "Are you sure you're okay?" I nodded. "Long day." She leaned forward, lowering her voice. "You should drink. It'll help you relax." There it was again. That subtle push. My mind raced. If something was affecting me already, it meant one of two things. Either I'd ingested a small amount earlier without realizing, or whatever she used didn't require swallowing. The thought sent a chill through me. I remembered the waiter's words. Clear liquid, small vial. How concentrated was it? How fast did it work? The room felt warmer now. Sound seemed slightly muffled, as if I were underwater. I glanced at her hands. They were clasped together tightly in her lap, knuckles pale, nervous. She wasn't celebrating anymore. She was waiting for something to happen. That was when guilt crashed into me. Not because I suspected her, but because I hadn't seen her. I had been so consumed by building a future that I hadn't paid enough attention to the person sitting across from me now. Had I missed something bigger? Had she been hurting? Or had she been planning? The questions piled up faster than I could answer them. My chest felt tight. Another wave hit me, stronger this time. I swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the table. The waiter noticed immediately and stepped closer, pretending to clear a plate. "You need air," he murmured. I nodded, barely perceptible. Across the table, my daughter tilted her head, studying me. And that's when it happened. A sudden rush of heat, a sharp spike of dizziness. My vision blurred at the edges. Then I felt it, even without drinking. The dizziness didn't fade. It deepened. At first, it felt like standing up too fast. A brief loss of balance. But then the floor seemed to breathe beneath my feet, rising and falling in slow, uneven waves. The room grew louder and quieter at the same time, as if someone was turning a dial back and forth. I gripped the edge of the table. "Dad?" my daughter said, her voice suddenly sharp. "You don't look good." I forced a smile. "Just need the restroom." I stood up too quickly. The world tilted violently. A strong hand caught my arm before I could fall. It was the waiter. "Easy," he said, already guiding me away from the table. "Sir, with me." I barely registered my daughter calling my name as he steered me through the dining room. Faces turned. Conversations paused. Someone laughed nervously, assuming I'd had too much to drink. I hadn't. That terrified me. The hallway to the restroom felt impossibly long. My legs were heavy, like they belonged to someone else. Each step took deliberate effort. My heart pounded, not from exertion but from panic. This wasn't anxiety, this was chemical. Inside the restroom, the waiter locked the door behind us. "Sit," he said, lowering me onto the counter beside the sink. "Don't close your eyes." I tried to focus on my reflection in the mirror. My pupils were blown wide. Sweat beaded along my hairline. "What did she put in it?" I asked, my voice slurring just slightly. He hesitated, then spoke carefully. I'm not a doctor, but I've seen this before." That answer sent ice through my veins. He explained quickly, quietly, a former job, a different city. A customer drugged during a private dinner. Same signs, same timeline. Sedatives, fast acting, colorless, odorless, designed to make someone compliant, unaware, vulnerable. My knees weakened. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was deliberate. "Did you call anyone?" I asked. "Not yet," he said. "I didn't know if you wanted the police involved, but I can." I shook my head, fighting the fog creeping deeper into my thoughts. "Not yet?" I needed answers before accusations. I splashed cold water on my face, the shock helping just enough to keep me present. My breathing was shallow. My heart felt like it was racing and slowing at the same time. "How long does it last?" I asked. He swallowed. "Depends on the dose." The implication hung heavy in the air. If I'd finished that glass, if the waiter hadn't seen, if I'd trusted the moment completely, I might not have walked out of that restaurant. I leaned against the sink, forcing myself to stay upright. "She's waiting," I said. "She's watching," he corrected. We waited a few minutes, long enough for my balance to stabilize slightly, long enough for the worst of the wave to pass. When we returned to the dining room, my daughter looked relieved and disappointed all at once. "There you are," she said, standing halfway out of her chair. I was getting worried. I nodded. "Just needed air." Her eyes flicked to the glass again. Still untouched. I saw it then, the tension, the calculation. She had expected something else to happen by now. The waiter placed a fresh glass of water in front of me, making a show of it. My daughter frowned. "You okay to finish dinner?" she asked. "I think I'm done," I said. Her jaw tightened for half a second before she smiled again. "Of course, we can go." As we stood, my legs wobbled again. I steadied myself on the table. She reached out, then stopped herself. That hesitation told me everything. Outside, the night air hit me like a reset button, cool, sharp, real. I inhaled deeply, grounding myself. The waiter followed us out discreetly. As we passed the host stand, he slipped something into my jacket pocket, a folded napkin. "Just in case," he whispered. In the car, my daughter talked too much. Filled the silence talk, about plans, about travel, about how proud she was. I barely heard her. My focus was on staying awake, staying alive. When I finally got home, I collapsed onto the couch. The room spun, but slower now, manageable. I pulled the napkin from my pocket and unfolded it. A name, a substance, a quick note. Fast-acting sedative. Call poison control if symptoms worsen. My hands trembled. There it was. Proof, not suspicion, not paranoia, evidence. This had been planned. My daughter hadn't made a mistake. She hadn't slipped something in accidentally. She had tried to incapacitate me, possibly worse. As the fog in my head began to lift, something colder replaced it. Clarity. Because if she was willing to do this, if she had timed it so carefully, if she had chosen this night, then the question was no longer what she did, it was why. And that's when I found out why she did it. I didn't confront her. Not that night. Not the next morning. Not even when my hands stopped shaking and my head finally cleared. Because confrontation would have warned her, and warning her would have been a mistake. Instead, I did what I've always done best when things didn't make sense. I investigated quietly. I stayed home the next day, claiming exhaustion. She checked on me twice, too casually, too quickly. "How are you feeling now?" she asked, standing in the doorway. "Better," I said. "Guess the wine hit me harder than I thought." Her shoulders relaxed. That's when I knew she believed it. She thought it had worked. While she went about her day, I opened my laptop and started where every real motive eventually leads. The paperwork. The sale of my company had finalized cleanly. Funds were in escrow, scheduled to transfer within days. I pulled up the trust documents I'd signed months earlier. Documents I hadn't really looked at since my lawyers handled everything. Beneficiaries, contingencies, clauses. I read slowly, carefully, and then I saw it. If something happened to me before the funds fully cleared, if I were declared incapacitated, if I couldn't legally make decisions, the primary beneficiary wasn't a charity, wasn't a foundation, wasn't even split. It was her, my daughter, $60 million. My chest tightened, not from shock, but from the realization that this hadn't been impulsive. This had been planned. I dug deeper. Emails, amendments, timing. The trust had been updated 6 weeks ago, by me, or at least under my name. I remembered the afternoon clearly now, her offering to help organize documents. "You're always tired, Dad. Let me scan these for you." I'd handed her the folder without thinking. I kept reading. There were notes from an outside legal consultant I didn't recognize. Not my firm, not my attorney. Someone else had been advising her, guiding her. I followed the trail quietly. Public records, business registrations. A name surfaced again and again, a man in his late 30s. No obvious connection to me. But when I checked her social media history, old posts, deleted tags, there he was. Gym selfies, group dinners, standing just close enough to matter. Someone had been whispering in her ear, helping her see the money not as my life's work, but as her opportunity. The realization hurt more than the betrayal itself, because this wasn't desperation, it was entitlement. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling, letting the truth settle. She hadn't tried to hurt me because she hated me. She'd tried to remove me because I was in the way. And suddenly, the pressure at dinner made sense. The urgency, the timing, the insistence that this night mattered. I was never meant to wake up clear-headed. I was supposed to sign something, or forget something, or not wake up at all. I closed my laptop, and I made a decision. I wasn't going to expose her yet. I wasn't going to call lawyers or police or demand explanations, because the moment I did, she'd retreat. Lawyers up, stories prepared, innocence rehearsed. No. If I wanted the truth, I needed her to feel safe. So I acted weak. I told her the dizziness lingered, that the doctor said it was probably stress, that I needed rest. I let her take over small decisions. Let her help. She stepped into the role easily, too easily. I watched her confidence grow. Watched her text more often, smile more freely, make plans. She thought she was winning. Meanwhile, I changed passwords, made copies, secured accounts she didn't know existed. Quietly amended the trust again, this time with safeguards she wouldn't discover until it was too late. I met with one person I trusted completely. No emails, no records, just a conversation. "What if someone thinks they've already won?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "That's when they make mistakes." Exactly. So I waited. I let her believe the danger had passed. I let her believe I was tired, distracted, vulnerable. Because when someone thinks they've succeeded, they stop hiding, they start revealing. And she was about to do exactly that. She thought I was weak. That was her mistake.
I didn't raise my voice when I finally confronted her. That surprised her. She expected anger, accusations, maybe tears. What she got instead was calm, the kind of calm that comes when you already know the truth. We were sitting at the kitchen table, the same one where she used to do homework while I reviewed contracts late at night. Morning light spilled through the window. Ordinary. Safe. That was intentional. She smiled nervously. "You said you wanted to talk?" I nodded. "I do." I poured myself a glass of water. She watched my hands closely, just like she had at the restaurant. Old habits don't disappear overnight. "I've been thinking about that night," I said evenly, "about how strange it was." Her shoulders stiffened just a little. "Strange?" she asked. "You mean you drinking too much?" I shook my head slowly. "No, I mean the timing, the pressure, the way you needed me to celebrate right then." She laughed softly, a rehearsed sound. "Dad, you're overthinking it." "Am I?" I asked. Silence stretched. I leaned back. "Tell me something. When did you start talking to him?" Her eyes flicked up. "Talking to who?" There it was, the slip. Not "what are you talking about?" Not "who?" Just "who?" I didn't press immediately. I let the moment breathe. "You know," I said gently, "the man who helped you understand the trust documents." Her face drained of color. "I don't know what you mean," she said quickly, but her voice had lost its confidence. I pulled out a folder and placed it on the table. Not everything, just enough. Names, dates, copies. Her breath caught. "You went through my things?" she snapped. "I went through mine," I corrected, "the things you thought I wouldn't notice." She stared at the papers, then at me. Something hardened behind her eyes. "I wasn't supposed to see that," she muttered. That sentence told me everything. I didn't interrupt. She exhaled sharply, rubbing her temples. "You don't understand how it felt, Dad, watching you build everything, while I just waited." "Waited for what?" I asked. "For my life to start," she said bitterly. "For you to be done. For you to finally choose me over work." The resentment poured out now, unfiltered. "You were never there,"